This video is part of the Road2 Advanced Terrain Modeling Group Exercise, Create Terrain by Graphical Filter. So this is the third video in this series of 4. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to do that third exercise, and in it, we're going to follow the steps and show how to create a terrain model of the proposed surface using a graphic filter named Design Proposed Finish Grade with Boundary. The graphic filter uses points along the entire proposed finished grade surface, which includes but is not limited to the side slope conditions, top of pavement, top of shoulders, curb, and etc. So it's going to pick up any points that we have in our template that's designed out there. Now these graphic filters are using our MoDOT points that we've placed out there and created these filters with those points. So if you have points that aren't part of the MoDOT library or anything, you would have to include them in a graphic filter, which you can modify and edit. A terrain boundary will also be incorporated that includes the points and makes up the limits of construction points. Okay, so the first step that we're going to do here is open up the corridors file, which I have open. And so in step number 2, it says verify the corridor design stage is set to final for route AC and TG. And then 1-design for the radius return. We just left this in the last video, and we used that design stage of top mesh. So we're going to change all that. So first we'll go into the AC corridor and change our design stage by selecting the corridor. And the one it wants is the final times 1. Again, it's grayed out until you select it. It's copied in from the DGN library into the DGN file, and now you'll have it. But it's always available. Again, the AC corridor takes a few moments to process. And you can see over on the 3D model that now, instead of having the mesh, we actually have our final design stage. I'm going to do the same thing for the TG corridor. And I want final times 1. Now it's burned into the DGN file, so it's highlighted or it's black. I can select it, it's not gray. Process is much quicker, and let's do the same for the 2 radius returns. Now again, these radius returns or linear templates have a different setup, but we want final times 1. No, the instructions say 1-design. So we'll go to 1-design, and we'll do the same on the other one. I'm glad I looked at the instructions. 1-design. When I'm finished, I can see over in the 3D view what the intersection looks like. So we're good there. Step 3 says open the terrain proposed file that we've been working in when we create our surfaces. So we'll go File. It's my second entry down here, number 1. And I will check in my changes. And again, we open it up and we've left it where the last exercise took us to. And so what we need to do is just delete all the elements in here. So I'll just make a selection set, delete. Again, anytime I do that, I like to run the compress tool. So File, Compress, Design. It tells me down here in our message area, file's compressed. So step 3 said delete and detach everything in the file. We've done so. Step 4 says reference in the corridors file. So we'll go to our reference icon. We'll do a Tools, Attach. Bring in our corridors, and I like to bring in the existing as well, the existing terrain. Add. We'll bounce through these couple of dialogues. Hit the OK, do a fit view in the background. Close out of the dialog box, hit the F4, select a terrain, make it active. And when I do that, I have my corridors 3D file in here as well. So I'm good. Next thing we want to do is step number 5 is go to the Create Terrain by Graphic Group tool, and that is located in the Task Tools, again under the Terrain Modeling Tools, and it's this folder with all these different colored dots on it, or squares. Create Terrain Model by Graphical Filter. So we'll select it. Now, this dialog has some stuff we want to go through. First off is you have a filter that you can select by hitting these double dots, triple dots. And in here, what we've got set up is we have some graphical filters, and we have some graphical filter groups, 2 of them, and we have some graphical filters. Now the graphical filter groups take these graphical filters and combine them to create a group. So if you had in your graphical filters, you had a design bottom of base, which I didn't mean to select it, it's going to populate these points for you so you can see it. And if I did click it, it's in there, so I'm going to have to remove that. And to remove it all, I have to just pick the other one. So what I want to do on this one is do a design proposed finished grade with boundary, which combines the proposed finished grade down below with a boundary. So it picks the points that we need for this graphical filter. So if I select that, it's going to populate it in here. Now the next thing that I'd want to do is select this preview button, and when I do so, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, you'll see stuff highlight, and it's going to show you what it's going to create for your surface. So it's going to hit your limits of construction area, it's going to hit your edge of pavements, your ditches, all your radius returns, the stuff that you have in the points list in that template. It's going to go out and pick those points and place them into this filter. Okay, so working through step number 5, A says pick the filter group. So I'm going to append the terrain. No, I'm not. I'm going to say no. It's wanting to know the triangulation options for the edge method. We're going to say none. It defaults to none. We'll go with none. Feature definitions that we want here, I'm going to turn on a terrain display, and I'm going to go with the design triangles, which gives me a name of design triangles, but I want to change the name of this surface I'm going to create to proposed terrain from graphic filter. And we want to be descriptive in our naming. It helps out. So now it's saying out on our heads-up display, our cursor says data point to accept the selection. So we'll go ahead and accept that. It's going to process. And you can see it went out here and it created that terrain. And you can see the gold, yellow triangles bleeding through. And that's that design triangles feature definition that's coming through. Okay. One thing to notice is that if we go to our Project Explorer and go to our tabs out here, we've got some different tabs. Civil Models, one that we go to all the time, but if we go to our Civil Standards and select it and go to the file and open up Terrain Proposed file name and go down to our terrain filters, just to show you that these groups have been copied in. So that group with boundary has been copied in, and that contains the design boundary for design, which is a proposed finished grade filter, and then the proposed finished grade template surface filter. So these two filters combine to make that group. And that's all we did. And because the points were included in this filter, it was able to go out and select them for us. Okay. Next step is I'm going to hit the F4. We're finished with that tool. Clear out the tool. And we're going to detach the reference file. So I'll go back up to my reference and do a tools detach all. Again, it's going to give us this informational dialog. It's going to break the dependencies. We want to say yes to it. And we'll close out of a reference dialog. The next part is step number 8. It's optional. It's edit the terrain model. We used a graphical filter group that had a boundary to it, so it really came in here and cut out these triangles very nicely around the outside. So we're losing a lot of the bogus triangles there. They're not going to be seen. Okay, so if we wanted to modify it again, you just highlight it, the terrain, go out to your rules, and remove the rules back to the surface. But in the graphical filters, the rules do not go back to the original corridor or the template, so they're not there at all. So now we've got our surface, and again, you can do the same thing as we did in the last chapter. You can take this surface and export it out as a land XML file. That concludes video number 3 on the advanced terrain modeling.